In 2026, the roar of Kenya AS modernized tanks fills the plains once ruled by one of history's most iconic machines, the British-made Centurion. Though now retired from active service, the Centurion tank remains a legend in Kenya's armored history. A steel veteran that laid the foundation for everything the Kenya Defense Forces have achieved in modern armored warfare. Its legacy isn't just about metal and mechanics, it is about evolution, how a post-war British tank helped shape the identity of an African army. The Centurion first rolled into service with the British Army in the late 1940s, just as World War II ended. It was built to be the perfect balance: heavy armor, strong gun, and reliable mobility. Over time, it became one of the most successful tank designs ever produced. More than 4,000 units were built, and it saw combat across continents, from the Korean War to the Middle East, from Vietnam to Africa. When Kenya acquired the Centurion in the decades that followed, it was more than a machine. It was a statement that Kenya was ready to stand strong in the post-colonial world. By the time the Centurion arrived in Kenya, it had already earned global respect as one of the best tanks of its era. The Kenyan Army, still developing its armored capabilities, used it not just as a weapon, but as a teacher. It trained crews, shaped tactics, and introduced Kenya's first generation of tank commanders to the science of modern warfare. Its thick armor, powerful 105mm Royal Ordnance gun, and cross-country endurance made it an ideal platform for Kenya's terrain and military doctrine in the 1960s and 1970s. Under the tropical sun, the Centurion's reliability became legendary. Its Rolls-Royce Meteor engine, a derivative of the famous Merlin aircraft engine, gave it both smooth torque and solid performance in rugged conditions. Crews often spoke about the deep growl of the engine, a sound that could be heard long before the tank appeared over the horizon. Though it wasn't the fastest vehicle on the field, it carried a presence few could ignore. As Kenya's defense strategy evolved, the Centurion served proudly in the armored regiments that formed the backbone of the Kenya Army. It was during these years that Kenya learned how to maintain, refit, and operate large armored machines. Knowledge that would later make it possible to adopt and sustain more modern tanks like the British Vickers Mk.3 and the Soviet-designed T-72. The Centurion, in many ways, was Kenya's classroom on tracks. By the 1980s, however, time began to catch up with the old warhorse. Newer tanks were faster, more agile, and far more advanced. The Vickers Mk.3 arrived, offering lighter weight and easier maintenance. Yet, even as modernization took hold, the Centurion remained a fixture in Kenya's armored legacy. Some were converted for training, others preserved as museum pieces or ceremonial vehicles. The last few operational units were gradually phased out as Kenya's fleet modernized through the 1990s and early 2000s. Fast forward to 2026, and the Centurion's spirit still lives on. In military academies, it's remembered as the machine that taught discipline, precision, and endurance. It's the tank that introduced Kenya to heavy armor tactics, maintenance engineering, and crew coordination, all critical foundations for today's modern armored forces. Every Vickers and T-72 now serving in Kenya owes a piece of its DNA to the lessons learned from those early Centurions. The Centurion's design philosophy continues to inspire engineers and historians alike. Its cast steel turret and sloped armor were ahead of their time. Its modular gun mount made it easy to upgrade, a feature that modern tanks still emulate today. Even after retirement, Kenya's defense engineers studied its internal layout and mechanical systems to better understand how to build and maintain armored vehicles suited for East Africa's conditions. Unlike many post-colonial armies that depended entirely on foreign expertise, Kenya built its own mechanical and maintenance capabilities, thanks to platforms like the Centurion. In fact, many of the maintenance doctrines still used by the Kenya Ordnance Factories Corporation trace their roots back to Centurion service manuals and British training guides adapted during the 1970s. What began as a British tank became a Kenyan tradition of mechanical mastery. When one looks at Kenya's armored parades today, the sleek lines of the Vickers Mk.3 and the rugged form of the T-72AV draw the eye. But if you look closer, the spirit of the Centurion is there. In the way the crews maneuver, in the discipline of formation drills, and in the careful balance between mobility and firepower that defines Kenya's armored doctrine. Even though the Centurion never fired a shot in large-scale African warfare under Kenya's flag, it stood ready through decades of peacekeeping and defense readiness. It represented deterrence, a symbol of strength that helped keep Kenya stable through uncertain times. To this day, military veterans recall the pride of climbing into that massive steel hull, feeling the vibration of the engine beneath their boots, and knowing they were sitting inside one of the most respected tanks of the 20th century. Now, in 2026, the Centurion has become part of Kenya's living history. Restored units can sometimes be seen during national defense exhibitions or museum displays, reminding citizens of how far the nation's defense capabilities have come. It's not just nostalgia, it's respect. Every piece of armor, every bolt, and track tells a story of a young nation learning to master the art of protection. The Centurion tank may be retired, but its legacy is very much alive. It remains a bridge between past and future, a reminder that progress begins with learning from history. Without the Centurion, there might never have been the Vickers Mk.3 program in Kenya. Without the Vickers, the T-72 upgrades may never have come. This chain of evolution, from British design to Kenyan innovation, defines the story of Kenya's armored power. In the end, the Centurion represents more than a machine. It stands for resilience, adaptability, and the will to evolve. It is the iron ancestor that paved the road for Kenya's modern defense force, a symbol of a time when courage met craftsmanship, and when steel taught a nation how to defend itself. As Kenya marches forward into the future of digital warfare and AI-driven defense systems, the Centurion remains the timeless echo of where it all began. A legend born in Britain, reborn in Africa, and remembered forever in the hearts of those who once called it home.